Kathleen. Good morning to everyone on Zoom and on Facebook. I am proud to be here with a group of amazing young women in a group of iconic women in our program, American Spaces program, She's the Boss. So to all of our friends on Facebook, please do feel free to ask your questions on our comment section of Facebook Live, and please do use your hashtag #AmSpacesKenya or #AmSpacesKE, and our hashtag #AmSpaces She's the Boss for this program. And with that, I will introduce my colleague, Esther Kihanga, the Director of the American Spaces in Kenya, to take us away. Over to you, Esther.
Thank you, Devin. And what a great pleasure it is to have all of you here on Zoom and on Facebook for She's the Boss, one of American Spaces Kenya's special programming, because this is Women's History Month. It's coming to an end today. I'm Esther Kihanga, as Devin said. For those of you interacting with us for the very first time, I just wanted to let you know that American Spaces Kenya is a network of vibrant, active spaces that offer free, interactive, high-quality, engaging programs in STEM, in health, leadership, governance, democracy, and economic empowerment, with a strong presence in Nairobi, Nakuru, Mombasa, and Lamu. Hoping that you'll find us on Facebook now that a lot of our programming is virtual, and engage with us. So I'm going to post some links to our Facebook pages, and when you find some time, please find us and like our pages and follow all the information we share there. Thank you for being here today. Like I said, it's now my distinct pleasure to invite our keynote speaker, because I want us to get right into the meat of the conversation today. Miss Kathleen Lively is our keynote speaker today. A little bit about her: she became the Minister Counselor for Management Affairs at the US Embassy in Nairobi in August 2019. She often serves as the acting Deputy Chief of Mission in Nairobi. And prior to that, she was the Foreign Service Institute's Dean of the School of Information Technology. She has over 32 years of government service with a broad range of experience. Kathleen started her career as a Presidential Management Fellow for the National Institute of Health and the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence before joining the State Department in 1991. At State, Kathleen worked as a senior manager in Washington and in Bucharest, London, Tokyo, Warsaw, and Kabul. She's the recipient of several department awards, including a Presidential Rank Award, and was promoted to the Senior Foreign Service in 2012. Kathleen is a Washington, D.C. native and holds an MA in Resourcing National Security from the National Defense University's Industrial College of the Armed Forces, and another MA and BA from the University of Chicago in Public Policy. She enjoys her family, teaching English as a second language, sports, music, animals, chocolate cake, like we all do, and the great outdoors. She's married with 2 sons. And I'm sure with such an impressive bio, I know you're ready to receive from her. Please, Kathleen, take the floor.
Oh, thank you so much, Esther. That's a lot to say about me. And I do notice that Devin changed from calling it a young people joining, because I'm here. So I'm definitely not that young, but really appreciate it. And happy Wednesday to everybody. Good morning to our esteemed panelists and all you young entrepreneurs out there, and students joining us, and everybody out there in Facebook land. I know you're really excited to hear from this very talented group of ladies who can share their tips with you on how to be successful. So I'm really, really happy to kick this off this morning. On behalf of the US Embassy, I'm really pleased to be here for this She's the Boss program, although I have to tell you, I think it should be called, Of Course She's the Boss. I mean, why wouldn't we be the boss? So we have an impressive group of women who's going to speak to us today, and they're going to share their experiences, their challenges, but mostly what their path to success was. We know that female entrepreneurship in sub-Saharan Africa have the highest rates of entrepreneurship in the world. 1 in 4 adult women is engaged in entrepreneurial activity. There are a lot of very keen business women in Kenya, I can tell you that. So that's for sure. However, women entrepreneurs in Kenya, across Africa, and frankly around the world, face many challenges, especially over this past COVID-19 year. which has disproportionately affected women. You know, in the United States over the past year, during the COVID year, the US lost 10 million jobs. Those are jobs that did not come back. Of those 10 million jobs, 5.4 of those jobs were held by women. Those are US figures. So it was very disproportionately impactful in a negative way against women. Women are more likely to face sexual harassment, poverty, discrimination, exploitation. Women have less access to economic support, such as loans or land. Gender discrimination limits women's participation in shaping economic and social policies. And women are expected to perform the bulk of the housework. And as a result, that means they have less time to pursue entrepreneurial or economic activities. So together, both Kenyans and Americans, we have to work to solve these challenges. Today, let's focus on some positive solutions. One of the pathways to success that's been really important to me is mentorship. Mentorship or sponsorship is something that can really help women to be successful. I've spent most of my career in the technology field, and as some of you know, that's a very male-dominated field. And so, you know, I had to work really hard, I think sometimes doubly hard, to prove myself, prove my value, to gain trust. And it was a former chief information officer of the Department of State who reached out her hand, she was a woman, to me, to help me navigate through office politics and different challenges. And I think, frankly, without her help, I would not have been as successful as I am today. And I always say to people that you have two hands for a reason. You have one hand to reach up to the people that came before you and ask for their support, and the other hand to reach back behind and to help the people behind you to be successful. So we need to look up for support, and we need to make sure we're helping the people that come behind us as well. Here's some other, so I think women helping women, which is what this forum, frankly, is all about, is really, really important, and one of the ways that we can help each other to be successful. Here's some other ideas about how to do that. Join entrepreneurial networks, such as this. Certainly in the virtual world and today, that's a lot easier to do. A network can provide support and ideas and people to talk to about your business plans. Find a great sponsor like I did. Find somebody with experience who can advocate for you and provide advice, and make that easy for them, because sometimes sponsors are really, really busy. They have their own home life, their own things. But if you make it easy for them to help you, I guarantee you they will really help and be happy to provide some support. So make yourself available, be flexible. Sponsorship or mentorship is really critical. Practice your pitch. That means your business proposal. Try you know, a great, very short 3 to 5 minute business pitch on your idea and practice it with different people so you can get different perspectives. And that's also very helpful for when the time comes and it's really important for you to get that pitch and hit it right with the people that can make you successful. Practicing is really, really critical. Tell your story. So connecting with people on a personal level helps people to be inspired and to want to help you. Tell your story about why things are important to you, how you got where you are. So it's important to tell your story to folks to make them help you, and also to inspire other people. Helping others. So this is really all about helping others. When you're successful, make sure that you can turn around and reach your hand back to other people and help them to be successful as well. Gender equality and women's empowerment are central tenets of our foreign policy. A world with safe and healthy and empowered women is frankly a safer world. And we know that the evidence is there that shows that empowered women that are educated and literate, make for a much safer and economically viable community. The US Embassy is working hand in hand with Kenyans to achieve mutual prosperity. For example, we just completed the second cohort of the Academy of Women Entrepreneurs, which provided business skills for over 120 Kenyan women and connected them to a network of over 1,000 businesswomen, and the opportunity to apply for entrepreneurial funding, seed funding. I encourage all of you to apply for the third cohort of the program, which is currently accepting applications. What a terrific opportunity to get some seed funding for your business idea. Another way that countries work together is by bridging American and Kenyans through exchange programs. And I've looked at the bios of these impressive women that are about to speak, And pretty much all of them are alumni of the different exchange programs that are sponsored by the US Embassy, the US government, and the American Center. Some of these programs include Fortune State, which pairs women leaders from all over the world with mentors from Fortune's most powerful women leaders. The African Women's Entrepreneurial Program, which sends women entrepreneurs to the US to network with policymakers, business executives, and developmental organizations. Vital Voices, which is a network of women change makers who are making the world a more equitable place for all, and the Yali Mandela Washington Fellowship, which brings together accomplished leaders from across the continent who promote innovation and create positive impact in their communities and countries. So thank you again for inviting me this morning to kick off this conversation. I'm turning the program back to Esther to introduce the panelists, Bahati and Gemma, and Asante Sana.
Karibu sana. We are so glad to have heard from you. What I'm taking from what you said is we have to keep one of our hands up to reach up for guidance, and use the other hand to pull others up. I want to encourage everyone to take this opportunity to do just that. So the panelists are going to share their knowledge, and I'm requesting that our attendees make use of our Q&A platform to ask questions, to broaden your insight, and let's make this conversation engaging. Remember, you can engage us on Facebook as well using the hashtags AMSpacesKE or AMSpaces She's the Boss. And my colleague Devin will be tracking that. So as we move this conversation along, allow me to introduce our panelists to you. They are incredible women. Their bios are far-reaching, they're quite long. So I took the liberty to just condense that. And I know they'll bear with me because we have very limited time today. And I'm gonna start with Chebet Lesan. Chebet is the founder of BrightGreen Energy. She was awarded the Queen's Young Leader Award from Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. She has received the Australia Award Fellowship in 2016, Clean Cooking Alliance Woman Entrepreneur of the Year in 2018, Katia Women's Fellowship in 2019, and she was recently named Africa's Business Hero 2020 by the Jack Ma Foundation. She sits on several boards, and I think she'll be valuable to us, just giving us insight into the world of renewable energy. Next, we have Lizz Ntonjira, who is an award-winning communication professional, a published author, and a Mandela Washington Fellow, committed to changing the African narrative by showcasing compelling stories that reflect the continent's improving development agenda. She's a public policy management fellow from Virginia Commonwealth University in the US, and also holds a master's degree in public policy and management from Strathmore Business School. I know we have some people from Strathmore today, karibuni sana. And she also has a postgraduate diploma in public relations from the Chartered Institute of Public Relations in the UK. Karibu sana, Liz. Next, we have Ms. Wale Zingizi, who is a journalist with almost 20 years of experience, but for our purposes today, she's the founder of Kaya Nuts, a social enterprise working in the cashew nuts value chain, making flavored cashews, butters, and snacks. An alumna of the inaugural cohort of the Academy of Women Entrepreneurs that Ms. Kathleen just alluded to a few minutes ago. She's also a beneficiary of the 2020 Fortune US Department of State Global Women's Mentorship Program. Then last but not least, we've got Joy Kyula. Joy is a passionate gender and trade consultant, an expert with decades of experience in designing and developing sustainable business models for membership-based organizations, service portfolios, client management and retention, strategic communication, and all of that good stuff. She previously worked in flagship companies such as Walmart Inc., Nationwide Credit Inc., both of them are in Houston, Texas, as well as Alexander Forbes Financial Services and Beulah City based here in Nairobi, Kenya. Karibuni ladies, I hope you feel welcomed today. You've got quite impressive bios. And to get right into the conversation, I know we're pressed for time, but we must extract the juice from all of you. I'm gonna head straight to the questions. Joy, if you can hear me, I know for years you've worked with entrepreneurs at every stage of business, from incubation to scale up to, big people are doing big things out there. And you've seen some of them even close shop. So where do good sustainable business ideas come from?
Thank you very much, Esther, and such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation, and even just listening to the remarks from Kathleen, very, very inspiring. So thank you for the opportunity to share. I'll dive right into your question. Where do ideas come from? And I think this can come from different places. One, definitely from yourself. You know, what is your passion? What drives you? You know, what is it that you wake up in the morning and you're very passionate to do? And how can you turn that which you're very passionate about into profit? So that's one of the ways in which you can generate ideas for your business. Another one is based on market needs. We are all going through the current ongoing pandemic. And with the pandemic came a lot of new ideas that were birthed into a lot of businesses shifted from, you know, just physical operation to going online. So sometimes what is happening around us can cause us to shift in terms of how we're doing business and move into what the market is demanding. I believe also just looking at the needs around us, you know, if you're trying to address a societal, an issue in the society, how do you, what need are you trying to address? Is it maybe pollution? Is it, you know, you're trying to eradicate poverty? Those all come from, you know, ideas that you can build your business on, and also learning from others. But I believe the most important is, what are you passionate about? Because if you do that which you're passionate about, then that will drive you to, you know, look to maybe get business support. It will drive you to be passionate about what you do. And, you know, I like one of the sayings that I like is, if you do what you like, then, you know, you're not really going to work. Let me just get that. Choose a job you love, and you'll never have to work a day in your life. So I believe it's driven by passion, and it's driven by, you know, what makes you wake up every morning and you're passionate about.
Fantastic. I know, Chebet, you are passionate about environmental solutions, and you had a great idea, meeting a need by creating biofuel briquettes. Your company is redefining how many underserved communities cook. How did you take that new concept, that idea, and make it a reality? And was there any resistance?
Great. First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm always, you know, very grateful to be in spaces where women are sharing their stories. I'm a great believer of representation, and how when you see people who look like you do big things, then it becomes more of a reality in your mind to be able to actually, you know, succeed. So for me, I think, you know, one of the things I realize as entrepreneurs is that a vision can be very big and very scary. And one of the most important things and what ways to navigate that situation is to break it down into small actionable steps. So you may have an idea, and it's an idea that spans across, you know, the whole of Africa. And really sitting with that idea can be very intimidating, even as a leader. So I would always recommend that break it down into small actionable steps, and then, you know, navigate through doing each step and celebrate those small wins, because entrepreneurship is not a sprint, it's really a marathon. So you have to learn to be methodical in how you approach your idea. The second thing is to share your story as you go. You know, I see a lot of entrepreneurs with a chip on their shoulder because they feel that they weren't supported by people when they started. And then when they finally started growing, so many people came on board, and they're all like, where were you when I was starting? I think that's a very wrong approach to take, because when you get a vision, when you have an idea, one thing you must recognize is you're the only one who can really see that vision. It's actually your duty as an entrepreneur to share that to people until they understand what it is you're trying to achieve. And if some of them do come later on in the journey, it is very strategic to welcome them into your community and use them as even opportunities and seeds to grow your business and your company. And by sharing your story, not only for friends and family, even for investment opportunities, a lot of investors will want to see that you have started, that there's something that they can put to grow into, as opposed to just having an idea. So however small it is, I always encourage people to start and then build the support as you go along the road. The third thing is, and I feel is the most important thing as an entrepreneur, is to keep it people focused. Who is your customer, and are you solving a problem for that? That's been mentioned 2 times today already by previous speakers. Because when you start a business, you have to identify that you're most likely not the customer. you're solving a problem for the larger community. So keeping your focus on the customer and making sure that you're really listening to what the customer is telling you and solving a problem. Whether we faced resistance, of course we did, it's part of the game. I think you have to generally have thick skin as entrepreneurs. And there's different forms of resistance that you can face. So the first is from your friends and family. You'll get worried. You get people who are worried about whether it's going to work, and they're invested in your success. So if they're scared, because they're not sure. So that's a kind of resistance that you face. It's really your duty to help people to see what you're seeing and bring them along on your journey. The second kind of resistance you face is competitors. When you're getting into a market, people who are already existing and supplying in that market are not happy to see more competitors come in. So of course you expect a pushback for them. And this is something you have to acknowledge. Market share is not free floating in the air. It's stolen, it's taken from somebody else. So whenever you're getting into a market, you have to think about that and think about how you can provide value in your ecosystem, and if possible, even build strong relationships with your competitors, because you find the biggest industries in Kenya actually have manufacturers and different service providers working together. So you want to think about how you're so strategic about that to reduce your resistance. Lastly, customers tend to be very risk averse, and that's the third form of resistance. So you have to be in a position where you're able to educate your customers on why they need you. A lot of customers are not very clear what they want. So it's your job to get into their psyche and really understand what it is you're bringing value to, and then communicate that clearly to them. Because most of the time, the first answer will always be no. So it's your job as an entrepreneur to not say, oh, I give up, it's so difficult. It's your job to actually pursue those customers until you win that market share. So resistance is part of the game, and it's something I think all entrepreneurs need to get used to. Thank you.
Fantastic points, Chebet. I'm so excited you bring that conversation, saying that we need to keep our businesses people focused. I know for you, Ms. Wale, that is part of your philosophy. How have you integrated people and community as part of your business model? Tell us more about what you do.
So basically, at Kaya Nuts, what we do is we basically work in the cashew nut value chain. And as we know, there are no cashew nuts elsewhere apart from the coast where I come from. And starting Kaya Nuts was out of a need from my own community. Having grown up, seeing cashew nuts all over, then all of a sudden a collapse of the biggest cashew processing company in the coast. Then here we are, as we travel, we buy sachets of cashew nuts, and they are so expensive. So you feel that, hey, what happened to my community? And here you are, you meet a group of women working on the same thing that you've been thinking about. But asking these groups of women where they sell their cashew nuts, and we realized there was a problem. Because what they are using is, one, they were using traditional ways of doing the cashew nuts. And then two, they have to travel like more than almost 30 kilometers away from their villages to go and just hawk their cashew nuts, something that is very expensive globally. And here I am, I'm saying we need to find a solution to this. That's how Kaya Nuts was born. And basically what we do is we work with women processors, of course, who are doing cashew nuts, and then, of course, trying to work with the farmers to see that we plant more cashew nuts in the community so that we retain our own local resources so that we can improve the lives of these people, because the climate is good. We have lands. So what we are saying is we need to grow more cashew nuts because the demand is so big globally. But where are the people? Where is our community? And that's what Kaya Nuts tries to bridge, to see that we work with the community, to see that we revive the once giant cashew industry in Kenya. Because as we see, a lot of cashew nuts come from Tanzania and other countries. But we have potential to grow this. We have potential to grow. And that's why Kaya Nuts simply works with women processors at the moment as we move towards aggregating farmers to see that we are doing hubs that are going to produce more cashew nuts, then create more jobs for their community. And that's how the model works, yeah.
Fantastic. I think, one of the things that I'm quickly pointing, realizing is that what you and Chebet have, largely known as social enterprises, where you have people, profit, and you've got the planet in mind, which is fantastic. And I encourage anyone in the audience who's thinking about starting a business to be socially about what solutions you're providing to the world. And really, you both have touched on something very interesting, a local product with a global with a potential global market. So I want to turn it over to Liz, who has integrated an e-commerce platform in her website. How important is it for women to leverage on technology for business? Liz.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Esther. It's really critical. I mean, e-commerce is the way where we're going. That's where the world is moving. I mean, globalization has made it easier for us to order weave or products, whatever kind of product that you want at the click of a button. And it's something that people need to continually invest in. Interestingly, in the 2016-2017 Global Entrepreneurship Monitor for Women, it did state that the highest level of female entrepreneurship is witnessed in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa to be specific. And Senegal was the best performer on that in terms of female entrepreneurs. However, interestingly, just listening to Miss Wale, to Chebet, and to Joy mention that it's out of a need. A lot of the women that had been interviewed then said, our business plans and our businesses were born out of an opportunity that came about. And, technology and new media right now is an opportunity that people need to leverage on. Unfortunately, as much as we have the highest female entrepreneurs globally in sub-Saharan Africa, we have the highest rates of discontinuation here in sub-Saharan Africa. Why? Two major reasons: because of financing, and two, because these entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs, don't feel that their businesses are making money. And I really like the point that Lesan mentioned around ensuring that you look at your threats. Have you done your SWOT analysis? Have you identified your key strengths, your opportunities, your weaknesses, the threats that are around within your niche area? A lot of times, as young people, sometimes we want to do business because Chebet is successful, because Miss Wale is successful. We don't really go to the nitty-gritty details. And for me, when I was doing the book, #YouthCan, I felt that I spoke to a couple of authors. I really wanted the book to be something that is globally available. Currently, the highest number of sales come from Kenya, followed by, internationally, we have the highest sales in the US, in Italy, surprisingly, the UK, and Netherlands. So for me, when I was starting the e-commerce platform, I had to ensure that I've done all the formal business applications. That's ensuring that the network is separate from, me as an individual, ensuring that I have a business account, ensuring all that paperwork is correct, ensuring that all the things within, because I'm registered under a community-based organization, all that paperwork from government is readily available, because these are items that you need when you reach out to big organizations like DHL Express, who does our international shipping, when you reach out to Fago Courier, who do our local and regional, our local deliveries. Those are some of the things that these people need. There's a lot of opportunity on e-commerce, and e-commerce does not necessarily mean just posting an item that you have on Instagram and saying it's for sale. Have you really looked at the opportunities that are there? Have you, one of the biggest impediment to people trusting online trade is the fact that there's no return policy on a lot of these things, which is actually legally supposed to be there. So once you do your homework very well, the entrance to the global market is quite easy. So on a click on a button, somebody from Italy can order the kaya nuts, etc. So right. I think it's a place where more and more people need to look into, do their groundwork and homework, and really try to tap into that area.
Absolutely. I like that you pointed out Instagram. I see a lot of young people getting into business, women thriving on Instagram. I want everyone to go beyond Instagram and see who else in the world needs your product and get serious about creating a website, get serious about creating an e-commerce, integrating an e-commerce platform, and that very important return policy that Liz mentioned. Joy, back to you. What do you think is standing between some of Kenya's women and what they need to make these globally competitive products and services? Is it a question of funding? Is it skill that is lacking, or do we lack networks? What's your take on that?
Okay, great. So I think you've already answered most of it, but definitely agree with you. I think one is access to relevant trade information, market information. You want to export to the US market, you want to export to Europe, or you want to export to Dubai, GCC markets. I think first it's having a very clear export marketing strategy and understand the market of that you want to go into. The mangoes that are needed perhaps in Europe will not be the same that are needed in Dubai. The avocados that we're exporting, into Europe market may not necessarily be what the US market is looking for, what is trending. So understanding the needs that are within that particular market that you want to go into, and do your research on it. I think
Right.
another very key point you've raised is on the access to networks. We do have business support organizations like AWEP, OWIT, and there's also trade support institutions like Keproba is now doing a lot of support to exporters, whether you're a woman entrepreneur or an SME wanting to go into international markets. They do have capacity building programs. They recently just launched an online directory where you can get to know what the different organizations out there are doing to support you into international trade. So one of the key things I believe is if you want to do international, you can go into the international space or do global businesses, you really have to work within a network. I think one of the biggest challenges I've seen in my time of, just be working around, especially with women entrepreneurs and the SMEs is, don't go at this alone. There's enough to go around the pie for everyone. So working in isolation sometimes becomes more of a hindrance. I think it's very important to look at collaboration. There's power in collaboration. There's power in coming together. If you want to export to Dubai markets, or if you want to do trade within Africa or to the US markets, that's a huge, huge market. And you can't really do it by going at it alone. So getting into groups, one of the groups that I must commend doing an amazing job is the Avocado Society of Kenya. And they've brought together, the different stakeholders, the different key players who can help those who want to go into avocado export and just grow your business. So there are a lot of networks out there. I would encourage, anyone wanting to go into that space to find a reliable network, find a support system. Right. And I really like what Kathleen said on mentorship. Hand holding, look for those who've been in that space before and can assist you. Don't do it alone. Don't try and just do some fishing expedition on your own. Go at it and learn from the people who've gone before you. Another challenge is on the access to finance, which this I've seen is quite a big challenge, and just having gender products that address the needs of the different levels that these entrepreneurs are at. Whether it's one who's been exporting for many years or is just getting into the market, just having gender lens products from our banks that can support the women businesses and the SMEs to be able to meet the market demands or the global demands that they have. So I think that's what I would highlight for now. Access to networks, access to relevant trade information, mentorship is very key, and having a network support system that you can rely on. We also, of course, do have the trade barriers, cultural barriers. And I really strongly encourage anyone out there who's listening, do join a network. Like we said, there's our network, there's the AWEP network, there's OWIT, there's so many out there, and I'll be happy to share more information. We just recently launched the 50 Million Women Speak was recently launched, really to support those who want to go into the Africa trading with the new opportunity that has come up. So I would encourage that we leverage on that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Joy. I mean, you shared some very insightful comments. Don't walk alone. Don't walk alone. That's what I'm hearing from you. Find a network. And Joy, if you don't mind, you could take a few minutes and just go to the chat section and write those key networks that come to your mind as we proceed for the benefit of our audience. And for the remaining few questions that I have before we take more from the floor, I see we already have some questions on the Q&A. I encourage more of you to, use the Q&A platform to share your questions. I'm seeing some great comments. Biabu Shafi, you're saying great lineup of strong women. Glad to be here. We're glad you're here with us. So keep the questions coming. And good to see you, Masi, Muhia. Good to see you, Lorna, Gatama, and many, many more. So for the remaining questions, I'm going to request our panelists to try and keep it short. We're really limited when it comes to time, but we must continue to extract the goodness out of this conversation. Ms. Wale, many women are said to second guess themselves and suffer from what is called an imposter syndrome, where they get stuck believing that they're not as competent as other people perceive them to be. I mean, for someone who now has her products stocked in local supermarkets, I mean, competing with both local and international brands, have you ever dealt with the imposter syndrome? And if so, how have you handled it?
Well, I'll want to pick it first from where Joy left in terms of don't go on it alone. I think that's where my strength lies, because what happened is, I'll just mention again that the opportunity I got to join the Academy for Women Entrepreneurs, hosted by, of course, the US Embassy and YEPI, gave me an opportunity to network and learn a lot of things. So for me, there was organic growth. You know, a lot of us as entrepreneurs come with the fake it until you make it so-called syndrome again. So you come here, you think you can just go to the supermarket, buy cashew nuts from the supermarket, add your margin, and then you make money. So that's how many of us go. But what I learned from like such networks is that you need to be strong in terms of your source. Because even today, when you go to Carrefour, they will ask you, how strong is your source? Today you go, because they know today they will order 1,000 packets. You will be able to deliver. What of tomorrow? Maybe they want Carrefour in Dubai, Carrefour in the, what will you do? So mostly, I think many of us come and we want shortcuts. And for me, I think I tried to grow organically, just making sure that I understand my products. What is that really the competitive advantage that I had? And when you look at, like, for example, when you look at kaya nuts, there was something that we added to the brand. Because when you go to the shelf, you see out of Africa, they've done plain roasted cashew nuts. And where they've gone a bit is maybe honey glazed or something. But what we said is, what is it that we're going to add value to our product? And we sat and said, we need to make them a bit different. And that's why today, for the first time in Kenya, you will find mint spiced cashews, cayenne lemon spiced cashews. These are things that are not there. I did not see anything apart from the product that we do right now. And for us, that first, believing in your own product, because that is the key thing, believing in your own product. Because many of us want to copy, yes, Kaya Nuts has done this, let me put my cayenne pepper, put it there. You must have your own line of that journey and have your own story to tell. So you find that years down the line, you've mastered the trade, you've learned how the business operation work in terms of this particular product, you understand your source, you understand your brand. And I'll tell you one thing before I stop. One thing that we did is for 1.5 years, we did not put a branding on our product. We did not. And people kept asking me, why is it that you're not putting labels on your products? And I said one thing, I'm not yet there. I'll put it when I know what I'm doing. And the minute we put the brand is when we got certified by KEBS. We understood that this is how you handle food. These are the permits you need to do food. And we followed the due process. We had no shortcuts. So there are no shortcuts. That's what I'll say to avoid the imposter syndrome.
Fantastic. I mean, wow, just getting to know your product and doing the background work, all the tough stuff that you need to do to be able to present yourself as worthy of these opportunities is what I'm hearing from you. Fantastic. Chebet, listening to Miss Wale and all of you, really, I'm learning so much. As someone who's as accomplished as you are, what is the space for continuous learning, networking, mentorship for you and other women in business?
Okay, great. Thanks for that question. I'm so, I'm feeling so inspired by this conversation. The gold nuggets that are being dropped by the different speakers for me are life-changing. And I think one thing to be in a place of continuous learning is you always have to make yourself a student. Don't ever think that you've arrived. I think that's the beginning of your downfall. If you start to think that you're the best that the world has to offer, I have the biggest market share, I am this, I am that, that's the beginning of your downfall. You must always make yourself a student of life. Listen to the people around you. Listen to the people above you. Listen to the people even who work for you. They have ideas. They have different outlooks on life. Listen to your customers. So always put yourself in a position of learning. Second thing is Joy and Kathleen have put this very clearly. You have to go out of your way to make sure you're putting yourself in a community where you can learn. Don't just expect and think that mentorship is going to happen to you or a sponsor is going to happen to you. You have to go out of your way and be intentional about looking for that sponsor, looking for that mentor, and making yourself as available to them as possible so that you're not very difficult to be helped. Don't make yourself a heavy load to be carried. So you have to be intentional about putting yourself in those communities. Then the third thing, once you're in those communities, you have to have honest conversations. I know sometimes even as women, the set of challenges that we face running businesses is not, if I Google today, the challenges of a CEO, I'm sure the challenges I face personally, a lot of them don't appear on that, that page on Google. Yeah. So I think we need to be honest about, even as an African woman living in our society today, what are the challenges we face? So having those honest conversations are very uplifting because you learn from other people how they've navigated, and you also get the courage to be able to continue. And I think just also adding on to what Ms. Wale has said about imposter syndrome, I think one of the best pieces of advice I was given about imposter syndrome is listen to the things you tell your mind, because there's two categories. There's facts and there's stories. The facts are what you're actually doing. The stories are the things you imagine in your mind that you possibly think could be true, but are not necessarily true. If you choose to focus on the stories, a lot of us tell ourselves very negative things about ourselves. So if you choose to stay in that negative space, then you become your own biggest barrier to success. So every time you have a thought about yourself or your business, write it down, ask yourself, is this a fact or is it a story? If it's a fact, it means you can improve on it. If it's a story, you need to put it where it belongs, and that's in the dustbin. Because you're never going to get ahead in life if you're constantly speaking negative to yourself. If you're constantly telling yourself, I'm not good enough, so-and-so is better than me, those are not thoughts that are going to get you where you want to be. So your mindset is a very important asset that you need to have to succeed in your business and generally even just in your life. Thanks.
That's fantastic. I mean, Nasanga, I hope you had that. Imposter syndrome seems to be something that a lot of women are dealing with. Liz, Joy, any of you dealt with that? And have you gone through that at any point in your life, and how did you address her? Liz, go ahead.
Oh, yes. I struggle with the notion of imposter syndrome. And I think just going back to what Ms. Wale had mentioned, you really need to understand your product or your service, whatever you're offering in the market. If you're not a business person, the skill set and capabilities that you have, that Lesan did mention about continuous learning. We're all, and I really love Michelle Obama's book on, we're all in a state of becoming. Nobody ever reaches the level of self-actualization, I think, because I feel we're always learning, we're always becoming something else. We're always morphing into something different because of the skill set that we get to gain at a different level in our lives. my biggest, counter for, imposter syndrome is once you understand your market, understand your products, understand your customers, understand your branding and your positioning, understand your unique value proposition to the market, understand what problem am I solving within my community. When you really understand that, then to be very candid with you, even if the president or the queen asked you, what are you doing with this work? You will be able to really articulate that. And the reason I say I struggle with imposter syndrome is I don't know whether there's the opposite of imposter syndrome, where I feel that, I should be in that room. Why am I not in that other room where the big decisions are being made? I need to be there. So I don't know if there's another syndrome of wanting to be in spaces where you've been not given a chance to be in. But I think it's really, and I'll use a perfect example for my work in #YouthCan. When I started the journey for publishing my book, a lot of people did talk about saying, in Kenya, in Africa at large, there is no reading culture. I spoke to several authors. I spoke to several publishing houses. And for me, once you have your level of understanding of the product that you want to put out, I was very clear that I wanted editorial control of the content that will be put out. I really wanted to be in, on top of things in terms of the marketing strategy, the go-to-market strategy as well, the distribution strategy. And those were things that the publishing houses I'd spoken to were not offering. So I decided to do them, do my groundwork around them and research about it. And believe it or not, 2 months into releasing the book, we had sold about 450 copies. Wow. This was very shocking to me because it really negates the notion that we don't have a reading culture in Kenya or in Africa at large. We really do have that reading culture. You just need to understand your niche market. And my niche market was young people. And just going back, Esther, to your point of thinking big, thinking out of the box, I didn't want just to have stories and around people in Kenya. And that's why the book features, people from 22 different African countries, Anglophone, Lusophone, Francophone. And the youngest person featured is 9 years old, a social entrepreneur from Nigeria, so that it shows you that there is, at any age, you can make an impact. Just going back to the point that Kathleen and Joy did mention, and I think Ms. Wale and Chebet as well, around there is power in testimony. There is power in listening to stories. There's power in understanding that, oh, Chebet looks like me, and she's doing it, then I have the capacity to do it. What's stopping me? So I think we need to really counter that imposter syndrome narrative with really equipping ourselves with the tools and capacities that we need to overcome that. And we're happy to do that through the network. Sorry, just the last point. Through my network, the Lizz Ntonjira Network platform, we have mentorship sessions where our mentorship approach is coaching, counseling, and cheerleading. And just to be able to walk that journey with young people.
Fantastic. And in the absence of cheerleaders, I want to encourage everyone to be their biggest cheerleader. Yeah, you have to psych yourself up. You have to keep going. I want to take it to the floor now. Devin, my colleague Devin is on the other side looking at all your questions and tracking what's happening on Facebook. Devin, good to have you back. What's the word from our audience?
Sure, yeah, so thank you. It's me here in awe of all of the work and comments from all of you. And so we already have a few questions. So why don't we start off with a question from Alexis. Thank you, Alexis, for joining. And the question's about mentorship and helping other women. In business, you're always in competition with each other. So what are your strategies for mentoring people who you might actually be in competition with?
So, Chebet, do you want to take that?
I'm smiling because, the nature of business is competition. It's actually a good thing. you know? So I think we generally have been taught to have a very negative perception of competition, but really competitors push you to be better. You know, I think about the times when BrightGreen has, you know, leapfrogged the biggest, and it's when we feel threatened, you know, by another company who seems to be doing a better job than we are. So I think one of the first things I'd say is, first of all, get comfortable with the idea that business is about competition. But as you've been told, you know, I feel like it's been broken down very clearly by Ms. Wale and Liz, that you have to know what problem you're solving very clearly and what value you're adding to the market. Because the truth is, the passion that lies in you and what you're trying to do cannot be copied. The product, yes, can, but there's more to your business than a product. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs need to sit down and ask themselves, why am I doing what I am doing? I can't stress this enough. Very many entrepreneurs have not gone through this. We jump into markets because of jumping into markets, you know? We need to sit down and really ask ourselves the question, because at the end of the day, a product can be copied, but the set of ideas and strategies I have to move forward cannot be copied. So companies need, young people who are in entrepreneurship need to first be okay with competition. It's a good thing. It means there's demand for your product, but you need to be very aware of what it is exactly that you're trying to do. And perhaps the last thing I'd say is that extra value that you're adding. Could you make it so difficult for somebody else to add that value? That's where things like patents and trade secrets come in. You know, if there's nothing new under the sun, I can even challenge you and say, whatever you're doing has been done by somebody else. So I can argue that you also copied someone else, you know? So have you added anything new? Like, for example, Ms. Wale's chili, cashew nuts and lemon cashew nuts. I ate lemon cashew nuts the other day. I'm just realizing that they came from Ms. Wale, and I'm like, they were so good that I can never have the regular salted cashew nuts again. So what are you adding that is so unique to you and is very difficult to copy? Those are the two angles to think about when it comes to competition. But let's start being okay with competition. It forces us to do better. Yeah.
Right.
I just want to add something to what Chebet has said, and I totally agree that, you know, business is all about competition. One of the biggest lessons I've also learned is, you know, don't be afraid to ask for help. Sometimes, you know, and I think this falls also under the imposter syndrome. We want to seem like we know it all. And sometimes that doesn't take us very far. You know, one of the things I love with associations like KEPSA now, you know, they've been every Friday running mentorship program. And just about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was listening to their CEO, Ms. Caroline Karuga, and it was so inspiring just listening to her talking about the challenges she went through to get to where she is. And, you know, you realize that failure is part of the journey. She shared, you know, some of the things she's been able to do to get to where she is today. And so one of the things I would really encourage is, like Chebet has said, once you know what it is that you want to do, don't be afraid to get mentors. You know, Ms. Kathleen talked about the Fortune 500 company, Fortune 500 program, which is run out of the US State Department. We've got programs that are run out of the Sherry Blair Foundation. We've got programs that are being run out of, like, if you're in manufacturing, the Kenya Association of Manufacturers does have a program for women going into manufacturing. So again, it goes back to be within a network. If you're gonna get into this space, I'm a big believer of have a mentality of abundance. Don't have a mentality of scarcity, you know, wanting to hoard things. Go out there, get help, find people who've done what you want to do, because chances are, you know, you're not going to be the first, and then learn from them, learn from what they're doing. And there are very many mentorship programs out there that you can enroll into.
Fantastic, fantastic. I want to take it back to Devin. Devin, do you have another question for us?
Sure, yes, thank you. So our next question, I think we talked about this a little bit, but maybe we can go some more strategies on how to scale your business. Do you have any more strategies on scaling business?
Great. Joy, do you want to take that?
How to scale your business? Sorry, I didn't get the question very well.
Yes, how to scale your business.
Okay, so in terms of, well, like I said, I think one very clear strategy is you have to have a very clear business plan. I think that's the first step, as many of the other panelists have said. Have a clear business plan of what it is that you want to do. Seeking also for funding is a way to scale up your business, and knowing, right now we have like the angel investors that can help. We have venture capitalists who want to help on growing your business. So I believe that's another way that you can actually scale up your business by getting the right funding. And like I said, capacity building, always be in a process of learning, get involved in programs that will help you grow your business. And like one of the panelists said, we're always learning. It's always a learning cycle. So get into the habit of doing capacity building programs that will grow your business.
Devin, great.
Sure, so our next question, actually, I'll take from Facebook, which we have Diana Asselstein, who has asked if you could mention some known business mentorship networks that you found particularly helpful.
Great. Ms. Wale, do you want to take that?
Sorry, I had a bit of some shaky network here, but kindly, pardon.
So the question was, can you mention some business mentorship networks that you have found particularly helpful in your career?
For me, one that I keep mentioning and I'll keep saying because I consider myself an ambassador of it, is the Academy for Women Entrepreneurs First, because what that program has done, and I know Kathleen mentioned that the third cohort is opening soon, possibly tomorrow is first. You apply. If you are, especially you are a young entrepreneur, you're an upcoming entrepreneur, apply for these programs, because what happens is they guide you. Because some of us went in with this idea that I've seen a problem, but for me, I did not know how to link the problem in my community to business. And these kind of things help you in terms of defining your business. Again, Joy mentioned something like you need to have a business plan. So many of us start businesses because you think, hey, when I do this, I'll make a markup and I'll make some money, and you just start a business. You need to have a business plan, because that tends to guide you in terms of how you do businesses. The second thing is that, of course, I got an opportunity through the US Embassy to do the Fortune Mentorship Program. And what I learned from it is paying it forward. I mean, today I'm here because someone else taught me about basic things on how to do a business. Why am I not going to share that with someone else? And taking it back to like competition. Competition is key, because let me tell you what happened to me. I was so confident of the flavored cashews and cashew butters. But hey, I've seen some people coming locally and I've said, yeah, it's good, because what this is making me is I'm now doing more products in the cashew value chain. We are now in the process of doing cashew nut cookies and cashew nut snack bars. Why? Because we've seen people coming, doing cashew nuts. Then we are saying, no, this is competition. So what competition does, they are pushing you. Of course, some of us are also joining like bodies, like things like Chamber of Commerce are key to join, KEPSA are key bodies to join, and of course, fellow entrepreneurs. Forums like these ones are very, very important for every entrepreneur. And I feel nice because I'm talking to people who understand where we are coming from. Our problems are unique, especially as women entrepreneurs. So it's important.
Sorry, we lost you there a little bit, Ms. Ale, but you make such great points. And of course, I want to add to the list the Lizz Ntonjira Network. I know she spoke about how she's, providing counseling, coaching, cheerleading. That's really awesome. So, Devin, any more questions for us?
Yes, so we have a question from Nasanga Aki, and on the COVID-19 pandemic. So we all know the pandemic has affected many businesses and led to the closures of some. And there's been talk about reinventing to adapt to the post-COVID period. So the question is, how have your business and enterprises been affected during this period, and what have you done to reinvent your businesses?
Fantastic. We'll start with Liz and then follow on with Chebet.
Yeah, so thank you for that question, Nasanga. Interestingly, I self-published everything during a pandemic. I was very concerned and worried how the book would do during a pandemic. But then when you think about it, when people are not moving anywhere, etc., and you have book lovers, it could also work to your advantage, which it did. And we really recorded great sales. And now we are at over 1,000 sales, which, within the Kenyan standards of the Kenya book publishers, when you sell over 1,000, you become a best-selling book. So I think the thing is to also, one of the things that's really undervalued during this COVID period is how to change and adapt your business into the circumstances that you face. Some of the things that we go through are beyond our control. Some businesses die, some others are born. And depending on the scale of whether it's a business dying, whether it's one being born, depending on where you are on the scale, you need to really think of how to leverage that opportunity. I think one of the biggest challenges when we think about businesses is we think too big. We think I need $1 million or I need $10,000 to start a business. When I worked in TV, I interviewed a really hardworking young lady who wanted to fend for her family, and she started her business with 500 Kenya shillings. That's about $4, if I'm not wrong, right? And it was about growing your business slowly and organically, like Ms. Wale had mentioned, and then adapting to the different things that you face within your environment. So for me and the book, to be very honest, we were able to really market. We were really able to position, we were really able to give that value proposition to people who were at home and needed to, have stories that they wanted to read. Interestingly, some people even abroad reached out and said, we don't have books, the diaspora, that people, our young children here in the different countries that they're in, that can read and see people that look like them. A lot of the books in those countries are, do not look like them, do not reflect the realities that they have. So I think for me, the pandemic kind of helped with the sale of the book in one way or the other, but also the branding and marketing of it really helps.
Yeah, and I think you're also touching on technology, just leveraging on your e-commerce platforms, right? Chebet, how has, what would you say about this?
Okay, so I think for us, what the pandemic showed us is that as a business, you need to have a plan. You need to have strategies in place, because when you know where you're going, it means you can also change direction. So one of the things we had to do, because in 2020, we were in a growth, we were positioning ourselves for growth at that time. So we were really going through fundraising, and we were really going through scaling up our model. And also, to answer the question on scale, let me just touch on this a bit. As you scale your business, for the young entrepreneurs listening, the market will ask you to scale. When you have very many orders, more than you're able to supply, that's the time to scale. So spend your money wisely. Don't go pouring money before you've built a market. So that's on that. So in 2020, we were in a position of growth, but then the pandemic came and we had to re-strategize into a position of survival. So we basically had to change our plan from a growth strategy to a survival strategy. And that for us meant going back to the drawing table, because our biggest customers were hotels and schools. And just as last pandemic and this pandemic, our business customers are, they're no longer operational. So that directly affects us. So what we did is we looked at other revenue streams that we had and thought, how can we blow this up? And one of the revenue models we have is selling to communities. And at the time, there were a lot of CBOs that were looking at how to impact change in communities through packages and stuff. So we quickly shifted all our marketing forces into finding partners who could help us get into the communities. And that became our revenue chain that actually got us through the pandemic. but I think it's allowing yourself to be, to grow, but also be versatile enough to adapt to different situations. And as a business, you'll need to do this, because in businesses, we have plans, we have strategies, but you wake up in the morning and by 9 a.m., the strategy has changed because something has come up and you have to navigate that. So you also need to be comfortable with navigating and still keeping the goal in mind, but it allows you to step away from that original plan, but still get back as things normalize. So this is something that's very important for businesses. Keep a strategy so that you know when to change it, when it's working for you, when it's not.
Okay, thank you. Because of time, I'm going to limit the questions to one more, and I'm going to ask the panelists to just take a look at our Q&A and some of the questions that are coming in the chat, and if you can directly respond, that would be great. But Devin, do you have one more that you'd like to highlight for us?
Sure. Thanks, Esther. So I think then the next question, and our last question for today, since we're running out of time, is from Yvonne Juguna, and she is running a cake business in her early stages. So good luck, Yvonne. Best of luck. And her question is, she's passionate about it, but she hasn't quite found her niche. What is the best approach towards this? So how do you find your niche in the market?
Let me see. Oh, wow. Joy, do you want to take that?
Okay, so finding your niche, I believe that comes from when you do your business plan, because that helps you understand who your target market is. One of the panelists earlier alluded to when you also do your SWOT analysis, but having a very clear business plan or business strategy will help you identify, where exactly is your target market? Who's your audience? What does your audience look like? Where am I best positioned? What's best location for me to be at as I start my business? And just as Chebet has said, with what we've gone through with the pandemic, it's also looking at what strategies would work for you right now. Is it having a physical store, or can I open an online store that will help me sell your cakes that you're doing? So I believe that stems from having a business plan or business strategy. And like I mentioned, there are very many support organizations out there, business support organizations for women that have programs that can help you come up with an ideal strategy. And I would encourage you to, I've shared some of them on the chat. I'd encourage you to engage in that. I know Academy of Women Entrepreneurs does have support towards that. And as Swale said, they're starting, I think, enrollment tomorrow. I'd encourage you to sign up for that, and you'll be able to be taken through, I believe, learning about your audience, how do I identify my client, what's the best location, and just what you need to start off the business. So I wish you the very best of luck.
Fantastic. And what a way to, conclude the Women's History Month this year. I want to say a big thank you to every one of our panelists, Chebet Lesan from BrightGreen. We've got Lizz Ntonjira from the Lizz Ntonjira Network and author of the book #YouCan, Miss Zingizi of Kaya Nuts, and Joy Kyula, Agenda and Trade Consultant. I know you've all derived great value from this conversation. I also want to extend my hearty thank you to Kathleen. I don't know if she can still hear us. She's actually one of the highest ranking woman in the embassy. So it's really a great honor for her to have set aside time to be with us and set the pace for today's conversation. Ladies and gentlemen from Strathmore University, we are so glad that you could make time to be here. Anyone watching us on Facebook, joining us on Zoom, we are so grateful. Please keep the conversation going. If you'd like us to have another session, containing this conversation another time, please use the hashtag and request us to do this again, and we'll be sure to look into our long winding catalog and find more amazing women for you. Remember that this is brought to you courtesy of American Spaces Kenya, and you can find us on Facebook. Devin must have posted the links earlier on, and you can follow every one of these lovely ladies on their social media handles. So I'm going to ask them to quickly say, how to find them on Facebook. Chebet, do you want to go first? How do our lovely audience find you on Facebook?
So, so all my handles on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram is Chebet Lesan. That's CHEBET LESAN. And yeah, I think that's it. So all my social media handles are the same.
Fantastic.
Looking
Liz?
forward to connect with you all. Thanks for
Awesome.
having me. Bye.
Great. Liz?
Yes, thank you. We're not very super duper active on Facebook, but on Twitter, we're at Lizz Ntonjira at the Lizz Ntonjira Network. That's it. Thank you.
Great. Miss Wale?
I love showing people our colorful nuts. So follow us on @KayaNuts, on Instagram, on Facebook @KayaNuts, on Twitter @KayaNuts Africa. So personally, I'm not so active, but the business ones are active. Thanks.
Fantastic. Joy?
So yeah, on my handles, you can find me at Joy Kyula, and I'll be happy to also share my email contacts for anyone interested. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much to everyone for engaging with us. Thank you, Devin, for facilitating our Q&A session and being the only gentleman in our panel today. And I want to say a big thank you. Thank you for your time. I know it's 11:15. We need to wrap this up, and I want to wish you all a great day. Goodbye.